registered nurse and president of National Nurses United. We are here today at the headquarters of PhRMA because this is a scene of a crime scene, and we are going to secure the crime scene. The people in this building spent $28 million on lobbying last year to keep prescription drug prices so unaffordable that some of our patients needlessly die. We have come together here to say, enough! We have come here today to demand the only moral just solution to our failed healthcare system, and that is Medicare for all! Registered nurses are here today from 27 states and the District of Columbia. Nurses, are we tired of our patients having to choose between paying for their meds or paying for their food? And in this people's movement, where we fight for change together, we are also honored to have an incredible coalition of organizations and everyday people with us today, representing labor, healthcare justice, social justice, progressive politics, patients who have been harmed by our failed system. Sisters and brothers, how many of you in the crowd know someone who has suffered or died because they couldn't afford their medication? Do you hear that, PhRMA? That is the sound of hundreds of people here today, fighting on behalf of tens of thousands more people who couldn't be here because they did not survive your insane quest for profit. PhRMA, you have had the ear of our legislators for far too long. The people are in this week to make sure legislators listen to us as we demand the real solution, and that is Medicare for all. Today we are calling out the greedy pharmaceutical industry and the greedy health insurance industry that are making billions and billions of dollars in profits at the expense of people's health. Our speakers are going to make sure that PhRMA hears and does not forget the human cost of its greed. So what do we want? Medicare for all! When do we want it? Now! So I'm going to introduce, I'm overwhelmed with emotion. Our first speaker is the executive director of my union, National Nurses United, the largest union of registered nurses in the country. Please welcome a powerful champion for healthcare as a human right, Bonnie Castillo.
All right, thank you and welcome. Thank you to all the nurses that have come from all over across the states for being here. It's really heartwarming. And this morning when we were meeting, we said that nurses always turn to a crisis. When there's a crisis, they know where they need to be. So, and I also want to thank all of our friends and allies. We could not do this without you. I want to thank you for being here today, for joining. We're here to send a big message to Big Pharma, right? We will not be silent while you continue to abuse our patients with profiteering pricing practices and influence peddling that puts our communities at risk, and it distorts our healthcare system. Nurses see this fallout every single day. When we see our diabetic patients coming to the hospital with elevated blood sugar levels because they could not afford the medications they need to control their diabetes. And that left untreated, that can cause blindness, loss of limbs, heart attacks, strokes. Well, insulin prices by 2016 were rising by $450 a month. That ain't right. We see families who can't afford the co-pays for the medications their children need to continue treatment for illnesses like leukemia and face becoming homeless or giving up on other basic necessities to care for their child. While the prices of a drug like Levac for leukemia patients shot up from $26,400 for an annual treatment regimen in 2001 to $120,000 within 15 years. That ain't right, exactly. We see the parents who struggle to pay for EpiPens, which their children must carry to circumvent a life-threatening allergic reaction that can happen within seconds to common exposures like peanuts and shellfish or bee stings while these prices continue to rise. And we see a completely out of control industry dominated by a handful of giant corporations who profit off of our publicly funded research and development that bribes doctors to prescribe price-inflated drugs, that manipulates trade deals and patent approvals, and that owns a whole lot of legislators who do their bidding in Congress and all of our state houses. And we see an industry that has joined the corporate healthcare industry lobbying groups that are engaged in a massive misinformation campaign to block the real reform, the reform that we all need, Medicare for All, that will help rein in its anti-patient practices. Under Medicare for All, we can finally use our people power to help bring some public protection back to our communities faced with these big pharma abuses. So this is our message to Big Pharma, and we will not be turning back. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. We are very honored to have this next speaker from the Center for Popular Democracy. Adi Barkan is a longtime leader and activist for social justice. He's the founder of the Be a Hero PAC, which was set up to elect people to Congress who will stand up for Medicare for all. Adi himself is just such a hero. Diagnosed with ALS, a terminal illness, Adi has traveled at great risk to his health and life to Washington several times to take stands against cuts to our healthcare system, against the nomination of Brett Kavanaugh to the U.S. Supreme Court, and today to demand immediate passage of Medicare for all. His commitment to healthcare justice has inspired all of us, and we are very moved that he has made this difficult trip across the country to be with us and to testify before Congress tomorrow. Because Adi is no longer able to speak, he is accompanied by another social justice warrior, Darius Gordon, also from CPD. And before I welcome Adi and Darius, I want to tell Adi on behalf of all of us that he is surrounded by the love and care that we are sending to him. So please welcome Adi Barkan and Darius Gordon.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
Mic check.
My name is Darius Gordon, and I am honored and humbled to be able to speak on behalf of my colleague and friend Adi Barkan. And on that note, I would ask everybody to, if they can, sit down. We want to be able to be here in solidarity, so if you can, have a seat. Thank you very much. Just for this portion, I promise you can get back up after this. Thank you. So I get the privilege of reading on behalf of Adi Barkan. We pay the taxes that fund the research, that create... Oh, okay. So this is a mic check. So you please all repeat after me. We pay the taxes.
We pay the taxes
That fund the research.
that fund the research
That create life-saving medicines.
that create life-saving medicines.
And then the greedy executives
And then the greedy executives
inside this building
inside this building
steal all the profits
steal all the profits
and charge so much money
and charge so much money
for the medicine
for the medicine
that millions of people around the world
that millions of people around the world
die from poverty.
die from poverty.
I hate pharma.
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 These assholes believe
These assholes believe
that they can stop us
that they can stop us
from passing Medicare for all,
from passing Medicare for all.
but they are wrong.
They are wrong.
We will beat them.
We will beat them.
We will whoop their butts.
We will whoop their butts.
And when we do,
And when we do,
we will end their profiteering
we will end their profiteering
and their negotiations
and their negotiations
and end their monopolies.
and their monopolies.
Because everyone deserves access to medicine. Everyone deserves access to health care.
Everyone deserves access to health care.
Healthcare is a human right.
Health care is a human right.
I repeat, healthcare is a human right.
Health care is a human right.
I believe
I believe
that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
I believe that we will win.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Adi. We love you. Our next speaker is an activist from Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement from Des Moines. Here to share her story, please welcome Lori Young.
Hello, my fellow activists, change makers, power of the people protectors, medical revolutionaries. My name is Lori Young, and I'm a proud member of Iowa Citizens for Community Improvement and People's Action. You know, for most of my adult life, I've had private health insurance, dental insurance, vision insurance provided by my employer. I was thankful because I thought it was adequate. But when my son needed surgery, my copayment and deductibles still cost me thousands of dollars, way more than I could afford. He had developed an advanced case of MRSA, and it wasn't like I had that kind of money in the bank. So I put something on it every month, as they say. What I could. I was a single parent raising 2 sons alone. Then I lost my job in 2017. The only blessing in that was that I could become a full-time caregiver for my father, who was battling terminal cancer. Over the journey of 19 months of fighting cancer, he tried several treatment plans. His last choice before IV chemotherapy was a revolutionary oral pill. A 1-month supply of the daily pill was $13,000. That ain't right. But with the coverage that he had, it would only cost him $1,000 a month. Only $1,000 a month, right? Well, unfortunately, my dad's health took a sudden turn for the worse after he'd only taken 3 pills. He was then hospitalized, and he ended up having to take chemotherapy anyway. But I have always wondered, how did people who didn't have the coverage that he had, how could they afford this life-prolonging medicine? They can't. How many people have an extra $13,000 a month laying around, or even $1,000 a month? No, not me. Anyway, when I lost my job, I prayed that I wouldn't get sick. What would I do? I went without health insurance for 7 months. Continuing coverage under my previous employer's plan would cost me $600 a month, which I couldn't afford. I went without health insurance for those 6 long months, hoping that nothing would happen to me. But I still needed health care. So I had to pay for my own medications out of my pocket. More money that I didn't have. Until finally, when I thought my problems were solved, I applied for and was approved for Medicaid. But you see, the thing is, in Iowa, we went and privatized our entire Medicaid program. Yep, handed the whole thing over to private for-profit healthcare and insurance companies. At first I was with United Healthcare, which was okay. But now United Healthcare is pulling out of our Medicaid program. They're doing this because United wasn't making enough money off the backs of everyday Iowans. So they're up and leaving the program. So check this out. Now I have to choose from one of 2 remaining companies where I get my coverage from. Maybe you've heard of them. Anthem and Centene. That's the same Anthem that was fined $5 million in California for failing to resolve consumer grievances and has a checkered history of dropping coverage for women with breast cancer. That Anthem. That's the same Centene who was sued for not providing enough in-network doctors in 15 states, while their CEO is the top paid CEO in healthcare and made over $26 million last year. Those are my options now. It's frustrating that in a short matter of time, I've had 3 different entities managing, or shall I say, manipulating my healthcare. And the time it takes to enroll, re-enroll, figure out what's covered and what isn't, it's stressful and it's frustrating. It's unnerving. It's like not knowing where your next meal is going to come from. So like so many Americans, I find myself a victim of circumstance, at the mercy of an evil system, just a number, not a 3-dimensional person. People are being tossed around in corporate bureaucracy that is full of greed and inefficiencies. To these corporations, we don't matter. Only the proverbial bottom line matters. Our current healthcare system mandates that you either have to have a job or that you're poor, and because of that, some greedy for-profit company decides what sort of healthcare that you get. That's the messed up part for all of us, and it ain't right. But here we are today to let these greedy companies know that we do matter. We are standing up for what the people want and deserve. Health is priceless. Health is what fuels this insanely rich country of ours. The health of our citizens is a right and not a privilege. We need to stop this madness. Capitalism has no place in our health care. We need and demand Medicare for all. So say it with me. Medicare for all. Medicare for all. Medicare for all. That's right.
Thank you, Lori. Our next speaker is a bedside nurse who works here at the largest hospital in DC. Please welcome Renessa Cotto.
Good afternoon. My name is Renelsa. I'm a cardiac registered nurse. I work at a hospital here in the district, and I'm definitely a proud member of National Nurses United. Becoming a registered nurse was one of the most important decisions in my life because it gave me the privilege of being able to provide a healing hand to my patients that are hurting, are in pain, and are at their most vulnerable. Unfortunately, it has become harder every day to provide my patients the care they need. I recently had a patient in his mid-30s who had been unemployed for 9 months. His health insurance had been tied to his employment. He lost his health insurance when he lost his job. As a result, he could not afford to get the care and medication he needed for his high blood pressure and diabetes. That ain't right. By the time he got a new job and health insurance, his heart had begun to fail. As a result, this patient was experiencing new onset heart failure that would have been prevented if he had gotten the care he needed. I recently had another patient who had serious heart problems. The patient had suffered an earlier heart attack brought on by severe stress. Yeah, stress can cause a heart attack. When she presented at a hospital with concerning symptoms, the doctors recommended that we take a CT scan to assess any changes to her heart health. He didn't want to do a heart catheterization, a more invasive procedure, unless the CT scan showed that it was necessary. I took the patient down to get a CT scan. In the middle of the procedure, received a call telling us that we did not have authorization to conduct the procedure because the insurance company would not pay for it. In the middle of the CT scan, we had to stop the procedure and take the patient off the table. Can you imagine how the patient was feeling? Can you imagine how the healthcare providers were feeling? I can tell you, it was an out-of-body experience. I was bewildered, I was lost, and I was just performing the action of taking the patient off the table. Insurance companies should not be overruling the decisions of medical professionals. The nurses and doctors need to be able to prioritize clinical judgment over economic choices. Insurance companies should not have the authority to prevent patients from getting the care that they need. Every day at hospitals and clinics around this country, bedside nurses care for patients who have delayed care because of lack of insurance or because patients cannot use their current insurance with its high deductible and co-pays. And the way to do this is to take insurance companies out of the equation and enact a single-payer system. Say it with me, Medicare for all! To me and other registered nurses across the country, it is immoral that anyone profit from another person's need for health care. And it's disgusting to me that profit comes from denying care. The way to stop this is by passing Medicare for all, and I'm here to tell you that nurses across the country are going to fight for it. Thank you to everyone here. We're taking a stand together. That healthcare is a human right guaranteed for every man, woman, and child, cradle to grave.
Thank you, sister. Medicare for all. 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 Our next speaker, we have Andy Brodak, an activist with Social Security Works, a leading organization in the movement for Medicare for all. He has an important story for us. Please welcome Andy.
My name is Andy and I'm from Frederick, Maryland. I want to thank you for allowing me to be here today as we demand right for our guaranteed health care. I love nurses. I love doctors. I love health care, but I don't love how we pay for it. My wife and I waited in a hospital room for the results of her colonoscopy. We knew she was sick, and the look in the doctor's eye told us it was serious. She had stage 4 cancer at 28, and we had 2 kids at home. Naomi worked hard in a factory in Michigan, a job that provided great health care. But when she became too sick to work, she lost the coverage when she needed it the most. That ain't right. And that is the problem with our employer-based healthcare system. We were given 2 choices to qualify for Medicaid. We could file for bankruptcy, or we could get a divorce. But the Affordable Care Act expanded Medicaid coverage, and she was able to get the care she needed. which gave us some more time with her. Those who live in states who have not expanded Medicaid are still forced to make that heartbreaking choice. My job changed. She was able to go on my private insurance. That's supposed to be a good thing, right? She spent her remaining time with us battling with that insurance company to get them to pay for what I was paying them to do. Her doctor would make a minor change to her treatment, and we'd have to go through a 2-week appeal process with them, and she missed chemotherapy appointments when we were waiting for those appeals. Naomi died in November of 2017 after nearly 5 years of battling with cancer and insurance. She envisioned a world where everyone had access to high-quality health care as a human right. I have a message for everyone who is opposed to Medicare for all. You say we can't afford to have it. I say we can't afford to not have it. No one should ever be asked to choose between bankruptcy and divorcing the person they love. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. We are so glad to have People's Action here. They have been organizing hard for guaranteed health care and economic fairness. Please welcome the Executive Director, George Gell.
Hey, People's Action, I see you out there. All right, y'all, think about where we were at in this fight 5 years ago. And right now, Medicare for All could be the law of the land in 2021. The law of the land in 2021. One thing standing in our way is the already uber-rich CEOs who want more money so badly that they're actually driven to profit off people's illness. That's their whole entire business model. And those people run corporations like United Healthcare, like Pfizer, like Merck, and like Johnson & Johnson. So it's pretty damn simple. On one side, we see profiteers who envision billions and billions more. And on the other side, we see tens and tens of millions of people who could have better and affordable health care. The profiteers or the people? Who? So right now, private insurance companies and big pharma control most of our healthcare system. And so what do we get for our money? The worst healthcare outcomes in the industrialized world, lower life expectancy rates, higher infant mortality rates, and we pay out the nose for those shitty results. But big pharma are among the worst offenders. These folks make more money than the auto industry, than big oil, and the health insurance industry. Last week at their shareholder meeting, Pfizer celebrated making $53 billion in revenue and $11 billion in profit this year, making them one of the most profitable countries on earth. And despite this, or maybe because of it, they raised prices on 41 of their prescription drugs, all while giving their CEO a 61% raise, so he now brings home $27 million a year. Tell me that ain't right. So how do we know this? Because we're out on the doors talking to people in the community all the time. People like Sharon Brown, who's a 66-year-old retired elementary school librarian. She lives in Kingsport, Tennessee. She had to turn to crowdfunding to pay for her prescription drugs because it costs her $13,000 a month. Crowdfunding might work for a month or two, but it's not going to work for a lifetime, folks. Or people who live in towns like Jerome, Idaho, where people who are unable to afford their medications are actually treating their illnesses with over-the-counter animal vaccines. So, private insurance has failed, big pharma has failed. So it's very clear government is not the problem, government is the prize, but right now it sits in a trophy case in this big pharma office, at Pfizer's office, at United Healthcare's office, and we gotta take it back, take government back for the people, and push like hell and pass Medicare for all. It can be the law of the land in 2021. Medicare for all, 2021. Medicare for all, All 2021. Medicare for All 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Next, I'd like to introduce another fierce champion of healthcare as a human right, Vice President of National Nurses United, Kathy Kennedy.
Thank you, Zenny. Again, my name is Kathy Kennedy, and I'm a registered nurse. I work in a neonatal intensive care unit at a hospital in Northern California treating the most vulnerable of patients, premature newborn babies. Every day, nurses like myself witness firsthand the injustice of our current healthcare system. We often see patients delaying treatment or rationing their medication because they can't afford the 50 to 100 copays. $100 is no small amount to pay for many of us who are struggling to make ends meet. Currently, there are over 30 million people living with diabetes, while many people rely on insulin to survive. The cost of insulin, as you've heard, a lot of us have said here, has tripled over the last decade. For the average patient, between 2010 and 2015, the price of Humulin, a common type of insulin, rose from $258 to $1,100 a year. This is crazy. It's absolutely insane. Because patients are unable to pay for these outrageous costs, patients are many times forced to make those decisions and to resort to other measures like rationing their insulin. That doesn't make any sense. Combined without getting any preventative care that they absolutely need, they can experience serious complications that we see every day. That include blindness, kidney failure, heart failure, nerve damage. Today, we are seeing more and more diabetic patients needing amputations due to untreated diabetes. And that's just not right, Not right. Nurses in my hospital often work with diabetic patients in the intensive care units who have just had either their feet or their legs amputated. We are absolutely frustrated that our broken healthcare system continues to cause so much unnecessary suffering. In emergency rooms, nurses see countless number of patients experiencing heart attacks, kidney failure, potential strokes, or newly diagnosed diabetes. And many times they're uninsured or underinsured and have never received health care before. This is not acceptable. Not in this day and age. It's not acceptable. It is an injustice to deny health care as a human right. We need single payer, Medicare for all, a system that provides comprehensive care for everyone. Everybody in.
Nobody out.
Everybody in.
Nobody out.
Everybody in.
Nobody out.
Everybody in.
Nobody out.
Thank you. Let's do this.
Thank you, Kathy. Our next speaker is Angelique Spate. She's from Spaces in Action. It is a community-based, people of color-led organization here in DC. Please welcome one of their member leaders, Angelique Spate.
Medicare for All. Hello, my name is Angelique Spate. I'm a mother. I'm a small business owner and a proud leader of Spaces and Actions here in DC. And I am here because I'm fighting for health care as a human right. I know from my own lived experience in this country, we desperately need Medicare for all. The health insurance industry would like us to believe that people with private insurance, they in love with their insurance companies. And that they will be against Medicare for all. That's simply not true.
No.
Is anyone in love with Aetna?
No.
With Cigna?
No.
Blue Cross Blue Shield?
No.
People might like their doctors, but they love their nurses. After all, making a profit and denying us care is what they've been doing. My most recent health plan was with Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I had a deductible of $1,400 a month. With $1,400 for 3 kids, and my children are in college, and I have one with special needs, which was a big financial burden on me. As you know, 40% of Americans don't have even $400 in the bank to cover an emergency. And 57% of Americans don't have $1,000 in their savings account, and you're supposed to come up with a $1,400 deductible. And many plan deductibles and co-pays are much higher than that. Unexpected medical costs have been a regular occurrence in my family. My daughter with cerebral palsy had a severe allergy to peanuts. My private insurance wouldn't even cover the single EpiPen. So I paid out of pocket over $500 for the EpiPen that I would leave at school for my daughter in case she had an attack. The District of Columbia had a parade last year which we attended, and my daughter, we didn't have an EpiPen and she had an emergency reaction. I felt completely terrified and hopeless. I was lucky that a paramedic arrived with an EpiPen and saved my daughter's life. But that shouldn't have been that way because of the greedy insurance companies.
That ain't right.
But I'm not here for y'all to feel sorry for me. I work hard for my health care and my family. But I wasn't getting it. I know my story is not unique and millions of people are underinsured with the same way that I am. But when pharmaceutical companies can change hundreds of dollars for a single dose of medicine, something is very, very wrong. They are risking our lives each and every passing day. We should not have to choose between buying groceries or paying for medications. We need Medicare for all.
Thank you, Angelique. Our final speaker, last but not the least, is the president of the American Postal Workers Association and a great friend of ours. Please welcome Mark Diamondstein.
Sisters and brothers, it's great to be here with all of you. I love nurses too, but I gotta admit, I'm not always happy to see them because if you are, you may not be feeling too well. But I'm feeling great today with all the nurses in the community and the labor allies here because we're out here together fighting for justice. So I'm not sick, I'm feeling good. But we are sick of a criminal, profit-based system of healthcare, or so-called healthcare, that puts profit over the well-being of human beings. And there's no bigger poster child or criminal poster than what's right behind us with Big Pharma. I want to salute the national nurses because you being on the front lines of healthcare have made you and your leaders over many, many years. When few talked about universal Medicare for all health care, promoted, educated, agitated, and fought for a human rights-based health care system. A salute to the national nurses. And now, Medicare for all isn't on the tip of many people's tongues. This is a good thing. You're making progress and we're making progress. And I've taken note recently, and maybe you have, that some of these media pundits with the early going of the 2020 presidential election starting to say that Medicare for all is not a bread and butter kitchen table issue for workers. Have you heard this? What the heck could be more kitchen table and bread and butter than having health care and having it based on a human rights-based system that we all have access to, cradle to grave, and we never have to worry and live through the nightmare stories that people have so eloquently shared today, and so many of you live day in and day out on the front lines of being healthcare providers. And I'm proud to be one of the many unions that has come on board, to lead one of the many unions that has come on board for Medicare for all. I see in the back the Association of Flight Attendants and their president, Sarah Nelson. One of the other unions. Sisters and brothers, unions now representing close to 10 million workers now have as part of their program and their fight Medicare for all. But we're not going to get there without a movement. We're not going to get there without a movement. If we look at our history, we don't have time for a big history lesson, but a short one. Movements drive Congress and legislation, not the other way around. You can look at the civil rights movement. You can look at the women's suffrage and women's rights movement. And you look at the labor movement. And every game was won because we had powerful movements in the streets. So we have to say to our families and our neighbors and our co-workers and our friends, if we're going to win what we need, if we're going to win Medicare for all, we got to get everybody up off the couch and onto our feet and out the door and into the streets, sisters and brothers. Carry on in solidarity forever.
Medicare for all. Medicare for all. Medicare for all. Thank you, Brother Mark. Yeah. All right, everyone, listen up. We've got one more message to deliver to PhRMA before we go. Are you with me? Yeah. We have all just heard heartbreaking story after heartbreaking story from patients and nurses that demonstrate just how broken our healthcare system is and why we so desperately need Medicare for all. And we are going to make sure that PhRMA hears that message loud and clear. All of you have a placard with a GoFundMe page on it, right? These represent the millions suffering under our immoral, broken system. There is no reason that Americans should have to turn to strangers on the internet to get them the health care they need and deserve. That's right. 2/3 of all GoFundMe campaigns last year were for healthcare reasons. This is a direct result of the greed of insurance and pharma corporations, represented by groups like PhRMA in the building right behind me. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take those placards and walk toward the staff behind me in the yellow vests. Take some Band-Aids from those staff, put them on your placard, and then stick that placard on the doors and walls of this building with your Band-Aids. We want to fill every part of this building with these signs so that this industry knows that we will no longer allow their corporate greed to cause the suffering and death of our patients. We demand Medicare for all. 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 And once you're done, nurses and People Actions participants, please proceed and head back to the buses.